Muscat, the capital city of Oman, is highly modern while also deeply rooted in the past. Nestled between the mountains and the sea is Madkha, the historical center of Muscat. The square in front of the Souq is a popular meeting point. Men wear the traditional Omani clothing, the white robe, the dishdasha, and the kuma, an embroidered cap. In public, most of the women wear a floor-length, cloak-like dress, the abaya, and a headscarf. There has been a women's team at Oman Sail since 2011, specifically requested by the Sultan. This is quite different to other Arab states, where the practicing of sport by women is unusual.
طبعاً أنا ما كانت عندي أي علاقة بالبحار الشراعي ولا كان عندي أي معرفة، لكن طبعاً والدي كان بحار وكنت أحب إني دائماً أروح البحر. طبعاً كنا نسكن على البحر، لكن شوي العادات والتقاليد معنا تمنع أن كفتاة تكون في البحر لأنه يكون في صعوبة عليها.
The idea to revive Oman's seafaring tradition comes from the highest authority. The incumbent ruler Sultan Qaboos started the sailing program in 2008 so that his sultanate would become internationally recognized for sporting achievements. Help in building the team comes from experienced sportspeople from abroad.
طبعاً في البداية الناس ما متقبلين هالفكرة إن فريق نسائي يكون في الإبحار الشراعي، فإحنا حابين نوضح للناس إن لا، الإبحار الشراعي إن البنات يقدروا يسووا شيء، إنه ما في شيء اسمه مستحيل. طبعاً إحنا البنات ما إن نتدرب وحدنا بس، بنات معانا شباب ناخذ منهم خبرة، ناخذ منهم معلومات أكثر لأنهم أقدم منا. Just coming. 3, 2, 1. Now. Okay.
The women's team has already participated in international competitions. Their furthest journey was to northern Germany for the Kiel Week sailing event. The sport offers young women the chance to develop self-confidence and independence in a country where the traditional notion of a dominant male is still widespread.
Good wind here. Gust. السيلينج طبعاً بالنسبة لي هو حياة ثانية طبعاً وغير الحياة اللي احنا نعيشها، لأن لما ننزل سيلينج على طول نحس إن كل الهموم وكل المشاكل نحس براحة نفسية في الإبحار ونستمتع كل يوم. طبعاً نكتشف شيء ثاني وشيء جديد في السيلينج، والحمد لله نتمنى إن شاء الله نتمنى من جميع الفتيات أن يجربن الإبحار الشراعي عشان يحسن بالشعور اللي احنا نحس فيه الحين.
خلاص هو كنسله.
The 3 female sailors are a symbol of the new modern Muscat. The history of the city stretches back to 2000 BC. Surrounded by mountains, Muscat was regarded as a safe haven. This was particularly recognized by the Portuguese, who conquered Muscat and built many fortresses in the 16th century. However, in time the harbour lost its significance and Muscat fell into a deep sleep. Sultan Qaboos has governed in the new palace since 1970. He overthrew his conservative father from the throne and set himself an ambitious target: to contentiously lead the entirely underdeveloped country into a new modern era. One of the last Halwa manufacturers of Muscat is situated in a narrow lane. The delivery of margarine is anxiously awaited here.
السلام عليكم. كيف حالك يا الله؟ هذه زبدة؟ كيف حالك؟ بخير بعدك؟ الله يسلمك الحمد لله بارك الله كيف؟ هذه زبدة؟
ايوه زبده.
هذه عمانية؟
العماني.
عمانية؟
ايوه.
من النوع الجيد؟
لا
جديد هذا؟
جديد.
جيد؟
أيوة.
هذا كم عدد هذا؟
هذا 1 2 3 4 5 6 7.
7.
أيوة.
مجموع كم كامل؟ كم قابل كامل؟
يعني 20.
20.
ايوه.
هكذا قال محمد؟
Halwa is the traditional dessert of the Omani people. Mohammed bin Zahran is one of the last remaining manufacturers who make halwa the old way. The only difference today is a gas flame which heats the underneath of the copper vat rather than the wooden fire. Mohammed and his assistant cook the halwa in accordance with the age-old family recipe.
من لدن طفولتي والذي سوى الحلوى وانا يومئذ في علم الغيب، ولما وضعتني امي وجدت والدي يصنع الحلوى وانا ورثناهن عن ابائي صدقا ونورثها اذا متنا بنينا. هذا.
Accolades and awards adorn Mohammed's workshop, where the 79-year-old still uses the stirring spoon. Omani halwa is a solid dessert made from sugar, starch and fat, spiced with saffron and steeped in rosewater. Before Western goods came into the country, halwa was the only dessert available.
الحلوى هي أساس التراث العماني القديم 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 أبا عن جد. من أول ما ذكر اسم عمان كانت الحلوى موجودة من ذلك اليوم وإلى يومنا هذا وإلى قيام الساعة.
Constant stirring prevents the halwa mixture from burning. Mohammed has an ingrained instinct in knowing when the mix is ready.
بعدها ربع ساعة بعد ربع ساعة.
Mohammed bin Zahran can remember when almost medieval conditions characterized his home city of Muscat.
أما أنا حفظت السيارات في حفظي أنا، ما ترصى السيارات إلا إلى الحيل، هذا الحيل العوامر، لا أكثر ولا أقل. كانت وبعد الحيل عاد ماشي السيارات الأخرى هناك، إلا على الجمال أو على الحمير. هذا في حفظي أنا في قبل السبعينات. هذا في عهد السلطان سعيد بن تيمور رحمة الله عليه، رحمة الله تعالى تتنزل عليه بكرة وأصيلا. هذا هو حفظه. أما في عهد السلطان قابوس أبقاه الله تعالى ويد بنصر من عنده، الحياة تغيرت والحمد لله.
Nothing has changed in the production of halwa. A wealthy businessman has ordered a large pan for a celebration. He spends 135 rials, around $300. It is tradition to spoil guests with the dessert, and Mohammed makes the best halwa in the whole of Muscat. The boss personally supervises transport of the valuable freight.
هذه الحلوى الآن جهزت وضعت في هذا الإناء، إن شاء الله أنها مكان معروف عنه. هذا طلب خاص لناس خاصين، وإن شاء الله يعجب بها إن شاء الله تعالى. وهذا زبون من لدن أمد بعيد ولا يزال يعني متمسك بنا ونحن متمسكين به إن شاء الله. هذا هو.
Previously, it was the mountains that protected Old Muscat from raiders from the outback. Today, however, they act as a barrier to the expansion of the city, and the houses are clustered side by side. Instead, Muscat extends along the sea. Sultan Qaboos, who studied in England, loves prestigious projects. The Royal Opera House, completed in 2011, is equipped with all pageantries imaginable. It attracts even international stars. In the large mosque that bears his name, Sultan Qaboos has also created an architectural monument. Islam is the national religion. However, most Omanis are Ibadis. Peace and tolerance towards people of different faiths categorize this interpretation of Islam. 6,500 believers find space in the large prayer hall. More than 1,200 lights glow in the 8 tons of heavy crystal chandeliers. Islam and absolute monarchy may not sound progressive at first. However, equality between men and women is legally consolidated in the Constitution of Oman. In Muscat, women take active part in public life. One of them is Huda Al-Latvi. Huda is a businesswoman and is on her way to an appointment in the city. She runs a chain of ice cream shops. A woman at the wheel, something that would be unthinkable in other Arab countries, is quite normal in Muscat.
Here in Oman, it's very easy. And actually, if a woman doesn't drive or a woman doesn't have a license, it's kind of weird. Like, how come you don't have a license? It's like you're not going to school.
Muscat is a city for driving. The greater area stretches along the sea for 60 kilometers. This means large distances separate parts of the city. The heat takes care of the rest. Nobody enjoys walking here.
Muscat, if you could see, it has mountains, it has beaches, it has so many, natural structure. So it wasn't civilized. So many places didn't have the basic services, electricity, water, and they weren't developed. But lately, these all places are developed, and that makes things easier for us. Makes Muscat, even it's big, but it's easy to reach from one place to another.
Huda is a marketing expert and dreams of setting up her own global franchise chain. As a starting point, she owns 5 ice cream shops in Muscat. She checks them regularly to see if everything is running to her satisfaction and arrives unannounced most of the time. A female boss is still unusual in Muscat.
So, how are the sales today? It's better now. The school, they finished the one nearby, so you have a lot.
As in country, Oman is one of the countries that generally they support women. My advice to all the women, I mean, if you live in such a country and you have some maybe conflicts here and there, some struggle here and there, I mean, you should do whatever you want to do. And alhamdulillah, in Oman, thank God, it's a very nice environment for women to be able to be who they are and raised to do whatever they want to do.
Vanilla, chocolate and strawberry flavors. Ice cream parlors in Muscat are still something special. Customers are often mothers who want to give their children a treat.
Strawberry.
In contrast with Huda, most women wear a headscarf in public.
Here in Oman, it's an optional. So that means some places you go, let's say a funeral or a ministry or a place that's full of men. So it's part of respecting the culture. You have to, have it around or put it on. But again, if you go to shopping or different places, whatever, you don't have to have it on. So it's optional in this culture. And in Oman, we have a very open-minded culture that respect the person, woman or men, for whoever they are and what they do.
The next appointment, A university lecture. Huda teaches at a school of economics and finance in Muscat and passes on experience from her business life.
First, who are entrepreneurs?
Before 1970, there were only 3 Quran schools for boys. Since school became compulsory for girls, young women have flooded universities to such an extent that sometimes quotas for men have had to be implemented. Young women are also clearly in the majority in Huda's class. They are the ones who will shape the future of their country.
Control them. Control my fears. And be independent.
Okay? If we actually work hard in making a human proper...
After the university lecture, Huda is en route again for her next appointment. Recently, she moved into a new building in an industrial area of Muscat with her company. When everything is ready, the ice cream will be manufactured here. Huda meets with her business partner and husband, Rami.
Hey babe. Hello. How are you doing today? How was your lecture?
The laboratory in which new flavors are developed is Rami's domain.
Yeah, to discover new flavors.
Definitely. Let's try something new today.
Strict hygiene rules are in force here. Rami is working meticulously on a new variety, frankincense.
Hey babe. So, this is what we would like to explore. This is the recently, if you can smell it, we got this frankincense from Salalah fresh.
A married couple working together. Can it succeed?
It's very difficult, to be honest. Very difficult. Definitely we have some conflicts in certain things, but we try our best not to mix home with the business, and we try to allocate tasks so we don't get this conflict of interest or conflict of power, etc. So yeah, it's that's what I think. It's a bit difficult, but
Well,
it's
that's from her side, but I really enjoy it. I can't have enough of her, so I have her at home and the work. How beautiful is that?
It's dripping.
I love my job. So yeah, I think this is approved for the day.
Yeah. And seriously, we need to meet for the business for this.
Huda and Rami studied abroad and are open-minded. However, Muscat is a city with many different faces. Only around the corner does it seem as though time has stood still. This is also Muscat. Fishing villages, where life peacefully takes its course. Nobody would suspect that this is part of a large city. In Muscat, it is striking that hardly anybody wears Western clothes. The inhabitants, whether modern or conservative, dress traditionally. Omani men never leave home without the kuma, a richly decorated cap. The kuma is part of everyday wear and is available in different colors and designs. Today, they are mostly manufactured by machine. A hand-stitched kuma is something special. In the fishing villages of Muscat, the women maintain this tradition. The caps are mostly presents for sons or the husband. For Nadia, Fatma and Amna, embroidery is a pastime, which requires a lot of patience.
دائما تاخذ 4 أشهر 5 أشهر. إذا يعني فيها نقشة شوية 4 أشهر. إذا ترسم يمكن 6 7 أشهر كذا تاخذ.
Sometimes the women receive such orders. In these cases, the kuma is naturally more expensive. It is a symbol of status and of adulthood for a man to wear on his head.
رسمة قمة روسة، بس إذا فيها بس شيء بسيط، بس أرض كانت يعني ما فيها نقشة، بس مثل هذا القماش بس ونرسم يعني ونخيطه، هذا لا عادي يعني. وبعدين الرسمات يعتمد يعني إذا كان لون نفس لون واحد القيمة تجي غير، إذا لونين مثل هذه نفس الشيء القيمة تجي غير، يعني ما نفس السعر تكون.
Just as the caps are part of traditional men's clothing, the women of Muscat also have a special style of clothing. The abaya, the plain black overdress, is only worn in public. Jeans, t-shirts and other garments can be concealed underneath.
الملابس العمانية كل ولاية كل منطقة يعني كل ولاية بلبسها. مثلا محافظة مسقط لبس الدشداشة العمانية مثل هذا المصدرة والصروال والوقاية، وفي منهم يلبسوا شيلة عمانية.
Before the Sultanate of Oman experienced prosperity through the export of petroleum and gas, daily life was hard for people in the sparse environment of Muscat. Over 2,000 years ago, the Omanis found a way to extract fertile soils from the inhospitable landscape. They began to cultivate dates in these oases. The date palm is the Omani tree of life. 15 fruit per day cover the human requirement for vitamins and minerals. Dates were the most important means of food for a long time. The most valuable commodity in Oman is water. In order to savor every drop, a sophisticated system of water channels is still in use from ancient times. This is how precious water arrives in the villages. Water is so important that it even has its own profession. The water supervisor is responsible for the fair distribution of water, and he is therefore one of the most important men in the village.
من 38 سنة أنا دخلت بالسنة هذه 38. كان واحد اسمه قبلي واحد اسمه سليمان ويحاضر النجوم، وبعدين اتفقوا هذا الشياب اللوليين من شان أنا أقسمه بالساعة، فهمت؟ الليل وفي النهار علمت هذا.
During the day, the time is defined by the sundial in the village square. Zahir, the water supervisor, tells his son how to interpret this. On the ground, embedded stones divide the day up into quarter hours. This system has worked for over 2,000 years. The position of water supervisor is a little like that of a mayor. He has to determine how much water is allocated to each inhabitant of the village. It is distributed fairly so that all of the fields can be watered. In contrast, the members of the village community participate in maintaining and rehabilitating the water channels.
الحين الوالد هلال شل فلقة، الحين الوقت ماله هو من الحين لغاية الساعة 3 العصر، وطبعا هو بيستفي غيث الفوق، مكان نسميه غيث الفوق.
Through a system of simple locks, the water is led through channels to the fields.
هذا نعمة من الله، وهذا أي واحد محتاج له، الصغير والكبير، والزراعة حتى الهوايش ملحح الماء هذا. وإحنا الحمد لله الله تعالى جعل في الرستاق عندنا ثروة مائية واجد الحمد لله.
Rustaq's watering system has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2006. Dates are grown on around 60% of agriculturally used areas in Oman. Plantation owner Hilal must now pollinate his palms by hand in order to produce a good harvest.
هذه هي حبوب اللقاح، زين، نسميها النبات.
صح ليش داشتين يغسل الصابون.
يقوم الوالد الهلال ان شاء الله بعد شويه بعمليه التنبيت او التلقيح النخيل.
اي والله.
هو خاض خلاص مجموعه من النبات وراح ان شاء الله يقوم بعمليه التلقيح. على راحتك على راحتك.
لا تماشيك صوت الحلال العجله.
Hilal is an experienced climber. Secured only by a rope, he climbs the palm, which is at least 10 meters high. At the top, he binds together the pollen bunches of the male plants and the flower heads of the female plants.
النخلة بشكل عام هي تمثل يعني شيء الكثير بالنسبة للعمانيين، فهي مصدر للغذاء ومصدر لكثير من الصناعات الحرفية مثل السعفيات وحتى بعض قطع الأثاث المنزلي، وكذلك صناعة القوارب مثل الشاشة، ونفس الوقت هي إرث للعمانيين بشكل عام.
For Hilal, this means waiting and hoping for a rich harvest. The fortress of Rustaq was the seat of government in the 17th century after Muscat had been conquered by the Portuguese. Only in the 18th century did the Omani rulers return it to Muscat. Evenings in the city are meant to be enjoyed. The best way is in an air-conditioned car or to go for a walk on the beach. Evening prayers mark the end of the day. Time for family life. After a long working day, businesswoman Huda Al-Latfi now tackles her son's homework.
Hamoudi. Spelling, movie, E. Movie. I'm trying to teach my kids to be their own character. All what I do is shape them and guide them to the right way, and most importantly, to be independent, having their own way of sharing their thoughts, making decisions, and believing in themselves. So, I mean, I try, and I hope it works.
Yeah. Huda and Rami are typical of the new upper-middle class in Muscat. Their lifestyle is modern, but nevertheless oriented towards traditional values and standards. Organizing family and career are difficulties that Huda knows only too well, just like mothers in the West.
That's the only time that we meet. It's over the dinner, where it's the main meal. That's why we try to keep it early, around 6:30. And we have family conversation, chit-chat, and talk about the day, and the issues of the day, plans for the future, etc. It's like a break time for us to catch up with each other.
Before the country opened up to the world, many business people felt defeated by the restrictive policies of the old Sultan and left the country. Since then, it has become valuable to do business in Muscat.
Look, there is no perfect city in the world. Every country has its pros and cons, but definitely there is a lot of potential in Oman, and there is a lot of future we can see.
Every home in Muscat is equipped with at least one air conditioning unit. A couple of decades ago, the people lived very differently. The Hajar Mountains separate the coastal region from the outback in a half-moon shape, a stone desert. In the dried-out riverbeds, the wadis, date palms, and abandoned villages. The people were still living in such mud-walled houses in the 1980s. These buildings made from natural building materials were perfectly adapted to the hot climate. Now that new houses with a bath and air conditioning unit are affordable, the old ones have simply been abandoned. Oman is one of the most sparsely populated countries on the planet. Rugged mountains and hostile deserts cover the majority of national territory. It is especially interesting for geologists. Mohammed Al-Kindi and his colleague Aisha Al-Hadri are in the urban area of Muscat. Quite close to the city, there are rock formations which provide the geologists with an insight into geological history.
See the difference between the two, like the dark units in here. This is one of the interesting places in the area because you can see the high rate of deformation within the rocks themselves. So if you look at this outcrop in particular, these rocks were actually horizontal like this. But if you look at the outcrop now, it looks very nicely tilted like this. So what happened in this place was actually some sort of colliding between two mountains, if that's correct to say, and then these layers were just twisted like this. So if you look at the outcrop, they look really amazing.
Mohammed and Aisha want to document the special rock formations in order to prepare teaching material. Thanks to modern technology, they no longer have to climb the mountain themselves. Today, a camera drone takes care of this.
How high it can fly?
Very high. But now you can see how the structure is basically continuing to the other side.
The dried-out riverbed between the mountains is easily discernible.
I actually call Oman the paradise of geology. And one of the reasons for that is that because Oman is located on the eastern edge of Arabia, which is basically a plate, a separate plate. And on that plate, you know, it has witnessed over millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, all sorts of tectonics, all sorts of different types of environments and so on. So it really captures, you know, a lot of the processes that have happened on the earth in great detail.
Such a good view of the cross-section through the Earth's layers of rock can only be provided by the Hajar Mountains. What would usually be deep beneath the Earth lies on the surface here. People have resided here in the valley since prehistoric times. These are the foothills of the city of Muscat today. The sea was shallow here millions of years ago. Traces of it can still be found today.
These are called oncolites, which were basically deposited in this layer, which is about, 1 to 2 meters thick in overall. And they're very nice to study and to understand also the environment of deposition of these rocks that probably happened here, 50 or 60 million years ago.
Oncolites originate from deposits of algae or seashells, for example. This is evidence that there used to be marine life here.
And then penetrate through these folds, and then they come back to the surface as hot waters.
Yes, exactly. So basically
It is barely imaginable that a tropical sea rippled here once upon a time, instead of this hot, dry moon landscape. Its inhabitants have left further traces behind in the mountains of Muscat.
تفاصيل وكذا تقدري بعد تحصلي شوفي هذا بعد قص الشفوش شكله جميل. So just by walking here, you can actually see a lot of different types of fossils here, specifically marine fossils, especially in the rocks that date back to about 50 to 60 million years ago, in a time period we call the tertiary. So what you have here, for instance, is a very nice echinoid, which is still actually living in the shallow seas today, and you can see all the different sides of it as well. And here, for instance, you have an oyster, a very nice oyster as well. You can see also the different details of the oyster. So this is a very nice, well-preserved oyster here.
Millions of years ago, these living creatures laid the foundations for Oman's wealth today, black gold.
Very generally, you have the fossils, the living organisms in the marine environment. But then when the sediments start to pile up on top of these organisms, when they die, the soft tissues of these bodies with the depth, the temperature, and the high pressure below the Earth's surface, they start to be converted into oil.
Basic activities talks.
The mountains and the sea have always determined the lives of people in Muscat. The Gulf of Oman off Muscat is still clean and rich in fish. Abdullah and his son Yusuf live in one of Muscat's fishing villages. Before sunset, they prepare their boat for departure. At daybreak, they go out to sea. However, their haul only begins once their bait has been caught.
كبداية للصيد نبحث عن الجيم اللي هو السردين. بعد ما نحصل على السردين هذا نتجه فيه إلى الجهة اللي نقوم بالصيد فيها. وعندنا حقيقة احنا اللي موجود هي جزيرة الفحل اللي موجود فيها عدة أماكن للصيد. وناخذ الجيم هذا من سواء كان منيتي أو الخيران حتى بعض الأحيان احنا نتجه للسيفة.
Yusuf and Abdullah look out for young sardines which linger directly beneath the surface of the water. They will use them later as bait in order to attract big fish for their own catch.
طبعا الغل هذا في نهايته يكون مثل برصاص حدود ما يقارب 8 كيلو الوزن. بعد ما نرميه في البحر بين تقريبا إلى 4 إلى 6 متر يروح داخل البحر، وأحيانا يوصل إلى 10-12 متر حتى يمسك الجيم هذا.
The sardines caught will be stored in a dinghy filled with water. Abdullah learned how to fish from his father. Likewise, he is teaching the same to his son now.
موقع المنطقة على البحر وكده، وتحصل أكثر الناس حتى لو كانوا مثلا شغالين في الشركات، شغالين في الوزارات كده، لكن مرجعهم إلى البحر. المرجع هذا الأساسي أو الأصلي إلى مرجعنا إلى البحر، سواء الواحد بعد أو قرب من المنطقة، يعني في النهاية مرجعنا كنا للبحر.
There are 150 types of fish here on the coast. In order to entice the big fish, Abdullah throws the sardines as bait.
والله على حسب. بعض الأحيان يكون السمك متوفر بكثرة، بعض الأحيان ما تحصل سمك. طب أسبوع أسبوعين ما في سمك. كذا يعني كما تقول أرزاق.
بعدها عملية البحث. هذا نوع من الأسماك اللي تواجه. طبعا هذه السمكة حنسميها حيسميها خروب وحيسميها قرقمة. فسمكة ممتازة جدا للشوي. لأن لحمها نفسه يتميز داخل بالبياض. لحمها جميل جدا يعني.
Abdullah and Yusuf fish directly off the bay of Madra. This is also where many cruise ships drop off their day passengers.
السلطنة أو كالولاية بين مطرح ومسقط تستقطب يعني السياح، لكن فيما بعد لما يكون التطور موجود هذا، وطبعا راح تكون هناك الزيادة، وهذه الزيادة فعلا يعني لما تعمل المنشآت والفنادق وغيرها في الميناء هذه، في نفس الوقت راح يخلق وظائف للناس اللي تبحث عن العمل. فهنا تتم الانفتاحية، هي ليس يعني استقطاب سواح فقط، إنما تكون الافتتاحية للناس اللي تبحث عن عمل، راح تكون لهم فرص عمل أكثر، ونأمل إن شاء الله أن يتم هذا في الوقت القريب إذا أراد الله.
The fishermen sell their catch on the pier in Muscat. It doesn't get any fresher than this. Rich merchants used to live in Madra, when the district was still Muscat's financial center. Trading still takes place here today. The Souq, a covered market, allures customers and curious individuals. Dealers offer their goods for sale in small shops. The scent of frankincense is all around. Frankincense was Oman's most important export item in ancient times. Tree resin was burned in ancient Egypt and Rome during ritual proceedings. According to the legend, Emperor Nero burned the whole of Oman's annual production at his wife's funeral.
السلام عليكم. صباح الخير، شو اخبارك؟ طيب، الله يعافيك. الحمد لله، كيف امورك؟ الحمد لله. بغيت كذا البان حلو من عندك. والله هذا البان عادي وهذا المصفى. هذا بريال، هو 3 ريال. هذا كم؟ ريال. وهذا 3 ريال. ممكن تحط من الناس بس هذا نوعين. إن شاء الله. أعطيني واحد منها.
The trees that produce this precious resin only grow in the south of Oman. They are harvested 3 times per year.
اللبان الحجري هذا أفضل أنواع اللبان، وأنه عندما يكون شكله كما قطرة الماء تكون جودتها أفضل، وأن اللبان يستخرجونه من شجرة اللبان، من قطع شجرة اللبان، وطريقة الاستخراج تكون بالطعن، طعن الشجرة، بعدين ينزل منها سائل نفس سائل، وكل بعد فترة كذا يبس السائل من الشجرة وتحصل اللبان على شكل حبات.
Like this customer, men used to perfume their beards with a scent of frankincense.
اللبان والمر كان قيمتهم واحدة، على حسب الوزن كله يعادل قيمة واحدة. وأما الحين بسبب زوايد الطيبة، روائح الطيبة هذه قلت قيمة اللبان.
Whoever is aware of antiques, kitsch or art can find real treasures in the Souq. An established feature of Omani men's clothing is the khanjar, which we call a dagger. It is still worn on official occasions. Nadia Al-Rahwi, the silversmith, produces the noble weapons for customers. Just one question. Why is the dagger crooked?
طبعا الخنجر هي تكون منحنية، ما يستوي انها تكون سيدة. ليش؟ لان لما يكون رجل يلبسها يعني وكذا ما يستوي انها يخليها كذا لانه يتعور فيها، فهي ايش تكون؟ لازم تكون من هنا منحنية على اساس انها ايش؟ ما هنا تدخل يعني وتكون هذا يعني تعبه في الجلسة، فتكون سيدة يعني مسمى يعني منحنية على اساس انها تجي على هنا ويكبس فيها.
The dagger casing is made from leather, which is embroidered with a silver thread. Training as a silversmith is required so that this old craftsmanship does not disappear. Nadia is the master and trains young women in the meantime.
فالحمد لله هذا طبعا لنا يعني شرف ان احنا نستمر على هذه الحرفة، لان هي طبعا هذه موروثات عمانية وتقاليدنا احنا يعني العمانية، خاصة ان الخنجر هو شعار السلطنة ورمز السلطنة، فطبعا يعني شرف لي انك امرأة عمانية يعني اشتغل على هذه صناعة الخناجر الحمد لله والحلي الفضية.
A trader's stall in the Souq of Muscat guarantees good business. Mohammed bin Zahran, the Halwa master, also has a small shop where he sells his sweet desserts. In his long lifetime, Mohammed has witnessed at first hand the change of his home city of Muscat. He responds diplomatically to the question of whether old or modern times are better.
الحمد لله لكل صرف لكل دهر دولة ورجاله. في عهد السلطان سعيد بن تيمور رحمة الله تعالى عليه، على قد تلك الأيام عشنا عيشة سعيدة إلى أن الله سبحانه وتعالى أتى لنا بمقام السامي السلطان قابوس وازدهرت عمان به، والحمد لله أصبحنا في نعمة يعني لا تحصى ولا تعد. كانت بالحقيقة ما كانت توجد إنارة، ولكن الأيام مشت ونحمد الله على الماضي وعلى الحاضر.
Muscat, a fascinating city whose inhabitants are proud of tradition whilst remaining open to new things. The Sultanate of Oman is steering its own fate, and the people of Muscat look forward to the future with curiosity and optimism.